am 110 years old, and I still haven't stepped foot in a hospital. Not a single one. Not to heal, not to visit, not to die. Because when the day comes, and it will come soon, I know it, I will go, just like my father went, sitting in a wooden chair, looking at the mountains, without tubes, without machines, without a stranger moving my body. I promise you that. But before I go, I have something to tell you. Something I've kept tucked away for over 90 years. Ever since my father, who was a folk healer in a lost hollow deep in the Appalachian Mountains, sat me on his knee one winter afternoon and told me, "Son, what I'm about to teach you, you won't find in any book. Because books burn, houses fall, governments change, but the body of a man is exactly the same as it was 5,000 years ago. And what cures still cures, and what makes you sick still makes you sick." I was 7 years old when he told me that. I was sitting on his knee, feet dangling, staring up at his beard that was just starting to turn gray. Today, I'm 110, and let me tell you something. I haven't forgotten a single word. Not one. Those things don't just slip your mind. They stay buried deep inside you, the way grain sits in a silo just waiting for the day it's needed. My name is Elias Vance. I was born in a mountain town that doesn't exist anymore, in a county that changed its borders 3 times in a century that feels like it passed 1,000 years ago. I've seen wars, I've seen famines, I've seen folks eating bitter roots just because there was nothing else left in the dirt. I've seen my own brothers die before they hit 20. I've seen things I don't even tell my grandson when he comes to visit, because some things are better left buried in the man who saw them. And yet here I am at 110, walking with my cane. Walking, mind you. Eating my hot soup every night, talking to you right now with a voice that's a little cracked, but with a mind that's crystal clear. And the question I always get, the question my grandson asks every single time he drives up from the city, is always the same. "Grandpa, how did you do it? How did you make it this far?" And I always give him the exact same answer. I haven't done anything special. I just did what my father taught me. And what he taught me fits into 10 pieces of advice. 10. Not one more, not one less. Today I'm going to give them to you without charging a dime, without selling you a damn thing, without asking for anything in return. Because at my age, you don't sell things anymore. At my age, you just give away what you know before it goes into the ground with you. But before I start, let me tell you a story. Because if I don't, these rules won't carry the weight they're supposed to. And I need you to feel that weight. I need these words to settle deep in your gut, not just pass through your ears. I had a brother named Bo. He was 3 years younger than me and the strongest out of the 7 boys in our house. He used to haul feed sacks that no other grown man in the valley could lift. He ate for 3 men, drank for 5. He had a laugh you could hear from the other side of the ridge. When Bo laughed, even the hound dogs started barking like they were happy, like the joy was just contagious. My father always used to say, "Bo is gonna live to be 100. That boy's built like an ox." Well, my brother Bo died at 43. 43. One winter morning he woke up, complained about a sharp pain in his chest, sat down in a chair, asked for a glass of water, and just stayed right there. No warning, no medicine that could have done a damn thing. The tin cup of water was still warm in his hand when we found him. My father cried that night for the first time in my life, as far as I can remember. Cried real quiet in his room, with the door shut tight. And the next day, when we were washing the body, he pulled me aside and told me something I've never forgotten. He said, "Elias, your brother didn't die from being old. He died from being too strong." He trusted his body so much that he forgot to take care of it. He ate too much, drank too much, slept too little, and he never listened to the warning signs. His body tapped him on the shoulder plenty of times, and he just refused to listen. And when the body stops warning you, it's because there's no one left inside to warn. That hit me hard. That's why, from that exact day, from the time I was 46 and buried my little brother with my own bare hands, I started living by my father's 10 rules. Not out of fear, out of respect. And here I am, 64 years later, passing them to you. If you listen to these 10 rules, if you follow them even halfway, I can't promise you'll make it to 110 like me. That depends on a lot of things. It depends on the good Lord. It depends on the blood in your veins. It depends on things no man gets to choose. But I will promise you one thing. You won't die like my brother Bo. You won't die terrified in a chair, wondering what the hell just happened to you. You're going to get old, and you're going to get there in one piece. That's what matters. The first rule is the simplest one, and the one folks ignore the most. Drink hot water the second you wake up. Hot. Not lukewarm, not cool. Hot. As hot as you can stand it without blistering your tongue. A whole glass, slow in tiny sips. The old mountain healers used to call this waking up the inner fire. Your body has gone 7 or 8 hours without a drop. Your blood is thick. Your organs are cold. Your stomach is shut tight like an old barn door that hasn't been opened in years. If the very first thing you throw down there is black coffee, cold orange juice, or milk straight from the fridge, it's like pouring ice water over a tractor engine that just cranked up. You'll crack the block. I've been drinking hot water every morning since I was 50. 60 years doing the exact same thing, 60 years without missing a single dawn, and at 110 my stomach still digests whatever I put in it. Kids today wake up and the first thing they do is dump something freezing into their guts. And then they wonder why, by the time they hit 40, their stomach feels like a heavy rock. There's no big mystery. The body is like a garden bed. If you drown it in ice water at dawn, you kill every little sprout trying to grow in the dirt. If you water it warm, everything thrives. My wife, God rest her soul, used to tell me every morning when she watched me putting the kettle on, "Elias, I can't believe a stubborn man like you has the patience to boil water every single day." And I always gave her the same answer. "Darling, this ain't patience. This is the only medicine that's going to keep me breathing when you're not around anymore." And wouldn't you know how things go? She left this world before I did. And I'm still here boiling water every morning, alone in my old kitchen just waiting for the whistle. The second rule is one you're going to need to hear twice. Eat until you're 70% full. No more. Never more. The old folk healers used to say your stomach always needs to be left 1/3 empty. My father put it a little plainer. He'd say, "Elias, push your chair back from the table while you're still a little bit hungry. If you stand up stuffed, you've eaten poison. If you stand up wanting just another bite, you ate exactly right." I know that goes against everything our generation was taught. We were the children of the hard times. We were taught to lick the plate clean. You don't leave the table until every crumb is gone. And that made sense when folks were starving, when a scoop of beans was worth its weight in gold. But when there's food rotting in the pantry, that habit will kill you. Look around. Look at the folks in their 50s and 60s. Almost all of them have a gut. Almost all of them have high blood sugar. Almost all of them have blown-out knees. Why? Because they eat to 100% every single day, 3 times a day. The human machine wasn't built for that. It was designed to run a little bit hungry almost all the time. That low, steady hunger is the very thing that keeps a body young. Ever since I was 46, ever since I put my brother Bo in the ground, I've never once stood up from a table feeling stuffed. Not once in 64 years. Not at weddings, not on birthdays, not on Thanksgiving. Not one single time. And that is exactly why at 110 years old, I still have my own teeth to chew my stew. Not a lot of them, sure, but they're mine. The third rule, sweat once a week. Sweat for real. I'm not talking about getting a little damp under the collar while you walk up the porch steps. I mean sweating until your shirt is plastered to your ribs and you can wipe the salt right off your forehead with the back of your hand. In the old ways, we believe sweat is the deepest scrub you can give your insides. Your skin is the biggest organ you own, and it pushes out the trash your blood and your liver just can't handle. If you never break a sweat, all that poison just sits there festering. And over the years, that rot turns into sickness. Those folks you see walking around with dull faces, dead eyes, grayish skin. They haven't sweat in years. They're walking around full of internal garbage. How do I sweat at 110? I don't go jogging, obviously. I can't. But I sit out in the hard summer sun for 20 minutes, or I soak my feet in scalding hot water with ginger root and a handful of Epsom salt right up until the sweat breaks out on my brow and the back of my neck. You could do that tonight. You don't need a gym membership. You don't need fancy gear. Just a basin of hot water, a chopped up knob of ginger, and some coarse salt. Feet in for 20 minutes. Throw a heavy blanket over your shoulders and just wait. Then you crawl into bed and sleep like a newborn baby. The next morning you wake up feeling like a brand new dollar bill. It's not magic. It's what my grandmother did every single night, and she lived to be 94 working the dirt until her very last day. They found her one afternoon in late May, sitting right beside her tomato vines with a hoe in her hand and her eyes closed tight. That's how she went out. Working, sweating, exactly the way she lived. The fourth rule is going to sting a little. Talk less. Yeah, you heard me right. Talk less. The old mountain folks believed your voice was tied to your life force. Every word you spit out drains a little bit of your vital spark. The people who flap their jaws all day long, the ones who do nothing but complain, the folks who tell the exact same story 20 times over, the ones picking fights over nothing, those people bleed their energy dry and then wonder why they're always so tired. My dad used to tell me, Elias, words are like silver dimes. If you spend them all on cheap candy, you won't have any left when the rent comes due. I learned to shut my mouth late in life, but I did learn. When I was 50, I talked entirely too much. I'd bicker with my wife over absolutely anything. Soup that was a little cold, a work shirt that wasn't hanging where I thought it should be. I dumped my problems on everybody. The neighbor, the mechanic, the first poor soul who crossed my path. I handed out advice nobody ever asked for. And one day, my wife, who was a hell of a lot smarter than me, even if I couldn't see it back then, dragged me out to the porch on a Sunday morning. She sat me down on the wooden bench under the oak tree and looked dead at me. Elias, you've been talking for 30 solid years. When are you going to start listening? That sentence felt like a 2x4 across my spine. It hurt because I knew she was dead right. From that day forward, I cut my talking in half. And the year after that, I cut it in half again. And today, at 110, I say exactly what needs to be said. And that's why I still have a voice. That's why I can sit here and tell you this story. The folks who lose their voice by the time they're 80 are the ones who ran their mouths way too much when they were 40. That's an ancient truth you won't find written down anywhere. The fifth rule is about your feet. And listen to me good, because this is the one modern folks fight me on the most. Warm your feet every single night before you go to sleep. 10 minutes in hot water, non-negotiable. In the old healing traditions, the feet are the roots of the tree. The most important nerve lines in your body enter and exit right through your soles. The lifeline for your kidneys starts right in the arch of your foot, in a spot the old-timers called the bubbling spring. And your kidneys, they hold your deep energy. They keep the raw fuel you were born with, the fuel that slowly burns away as you age. If your feet are freezing, Your kidneys are freezing. If your internal fire is cold, you burn out long before your time. That's exactly why you see so many 50-year-olds walking around looking like they just turned 70. Their fire is dead, their fuel is tapped out, and the saddest part is, they could fix it. 10 minutes of hot water every night could fix the whole damn thing. I've done it every night for 70 years. I never skipped a single night. Not when it was pouring rain, not when it was a blizzard outside, not when I was dead tired, not when I was drowning in sorrow. Not even the day I buried my wife. That very night, when I walked back from the graveyard with my boots caked in thick mud, I sat down in my kitchen, boiled the water, plunged my feet in, and I cried. I sobbed, with my feet soaking in that scalding basin because right then, it was the only grounding thing I had left in the world. Every night, hot water, feet in, a little ginger if I have it, and then straight to bed. That right there is why a man my age still sleeps 7 straight hours like a rock. The 6th rule, never sit at the table angry. This might sound like a small thing to you, but it's not. When you eat mad, when you eat in the middle of a screaming match, when you eat with your head spinning full of stress, that food doesn't digest. It just sits in your gut and ferments like a rotten peach left in a forgotten basket. The old healers used to say that your spleen is the furnace that burns your food, and that furnace gets smothered by worry. If you eat while you're anxious, you're forcing your body to do 2 heavy jobs at the exact same time, digest the meat and digest the anxiety. It can't pull off both. I lost my first little girl, a sweet thing named Lily, when she was barely 4 years old, and I was 32. A fever took her in less than a week. Started on a Monday with her forehead running a little hot, and by the following Sunday she was wrapped up in a white sheet out on the back porch. There was nothing anyone could do back then, not a damn thing. And for months after that, I sat down to eat with my mind completely trapped with my dead little girl. I'd eat and stare at her empty wooden chair. I'd eat and hear the ghost of her voice echoing in the hall. I ate without chewing, swallowing blind, and my body broke down. I developed bleeding ulcers in my gut that absolutely nothing could touch. My father came down from the mountain to stay with me for a couple of weeks. He just watched me eat, didn't say a word. Finally, one afternoon, he looked hard at me across the table and said, "Son, your little girl is already exactly where she needs to be. Lily is at peace. But if you keep eating like a mad dog, you're going to end up in the dirt right next to her way before your time. And then who the hell is going to raise the 3 kids you still have left?" That harsh truth healed my ulcers faster than any bitter root ever could. From that day on, whenever I pull my chair up to a plate of food, I leave the world outside. The grief, the anger, the unpaid bills, all of it. The dinner table is holy ground. The only things allowed at that table are the food and the people I love. Everything else waits on the porch. And if those problems are still sitting there when I wipe my mouth, I'll deal with them then. The 7th rule. Get your body in bed before 11 p.m. No exceptions. The old folk wisdom has preached for centuries that between 11 at night and 1 in the morning is when your gallbladder repairs itself, and between 1 and 3 is when your liver flushes out the poison. If you're wide awake pacing the floors during those hours, your organs miss their shift. The next day you wake up with your insides coated in sludge, even if you just took a hot shower on the outside. Kids today go to bed at 2 in the morning staring dead-eyed into a little glowing screen lighting up their faces. They stay up till 3 in the morning watching garbage that doesn't matter to a single soul on earth, least of all to them. And then they hit 40, their liver turns to stone, and they act like it's some big medical mystery. At 110 years old, I'm under the covers at 9 p.m. flat, and my boots hit the floor at 5 a.m. When the natural light dies, the day dies. When the sun breaks the ridge, the day begins. It's that simple. It's how my grandfather did it, and his grandfather before him. It's how mankind lived for thousands of years before some fool invented the light bulb. And that is exactly why, after 110 years of hard mileage, my liver still purrs like a kitten. If you can't manage 9 o'clock, go to sleep at 10. If you can't do 10, make it 11. But do not cross that line. Every single hour you stay awake past 11 p.m. is an hour you are directly stealing from the end of your life. And trust me, the house always collects on those hours. They charge heavy interest, and they come to collect when you least expect it. Usually, on a random Tuesday morning, with zero warning. The 8th rule: move your body every single day. Even if it's just a little bit, but move it, smooth and slow. The old ways never put much stock in violent exercise. They didn't believe in running 20 miles till your lungs bled, or lifting heavy iron until your veins popped. They believed in a soft, steady rhythm. The kind of movement that pushes the blood around without burning up your deep fuel. When you see a 25-year-old kid running marathons, you think he looks like the picture of health. But if you look at him through the eyes of an old mountain healer, you see a man draining his tank. You see him burning up his vital spark at a speed he can never, ever get back. That's exactly why half those guys hit 50 and fall apart. Blown knees, slipped discs, irregular heartbeats. The human frame just can't take that kind of beating. The body was built to move the way a deep river moves, slow, heavy, but never, ever stopping. Every morning since I was a young buck, I do a routine my daddy used to call shaking off the rust. It's just slow, easy motions. Rolling my arms in wide circles, twisting my hips slow, looking far over one shoulder than the other, pulling my knees up high one at a time, stretching my fingers out wide one by one, like I'm grabbing hold of the thin air. 15 minutes. That's the whole routine. And after that I walk. I walk around my yard. I walk down the blacktop if the weather holds. I pace the floorboards inside the house if it's raining. But I walk. My wife always used to tell me, "Elias, as long as you keep moving your feet, the Reaper can't catch you." And she was dead right. The folks who stop walking go into the dirt real quick. The folks who keep moving, even if it's at a snail's pace, they endure. I knew a neighbor out here named John Gray. One afternoon he sat down in his recliner, looked at me and said, "I reckon I've walked enough in this life." He was 70 years old. He never really got out of that chair again. At 73, he was dead. Standing over his open grave, I made a promise to myself. "Elias," I said, "even if your damn legs feel like they're on fire, do not sit down." I haven't sat down, and that's why I'm still breathing. The 9th rule is one I learned late, and I paid a brutal price for the lesson. Let go of whatever you can't fix anymore. My mother passed away when I was 54. We had gotten into a bitter fight 2 years before that over something completely stupid. Something so small I can't even tell you what it was. Something about a handful of cash I spotted her and she paid me back wrong, or I just thought she paid me back wrong. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But for 2 whole years, I refused to drive out and see her. Just pure stubborn pride. She lived 3 hours up the highway and I didn't visit her once. And when the phone rang to tell me she was gone, I was too late. By the time I pulled up to her house, my mother was already cold. Her hands were folded neat across her chest, the way the church ladies had arranged them. I pulled up a chair right next to her bed and just started talking to her. I begged her to forgive me. I poured out every single word I should have said 2 years prior. I told her I loved her. I told her I was a damn fool. I told her I was the one who was dead wrong, but she couldn't hear me anymore. Or maybe she could. I don't know. That's a secret only the dead get to keep. But I do know one thing. I carried that heavy, suffocating guilt on my back for a decade. 10 long years with my mother in the ground, and me still whispering apologies to the dark ceiling every night before I closed my eyes. Until one autumn afternoon, I was walking through the deep woods, and I came across an ancient oak tree that had been ripped down by a brutal storm. And right there, nestled in the dirt beside that fallen giant, a new sapling was pushing up. Small, bright green, stubborn. Its little roots were tangling right down into the rotting roots of the dead tree. And it hit me like a lightning bolt. What falls stays fallen. It's never going to stand upright again. But life pushes forward, and you have to move with the living, not chain yourself to what's already crashed into the dirt. That was the day I finally let my mother go. I let her go with love. I looked up at the sky and said, "Mama, it's done. I love you. I forgave you. Whether you forgave me or not, I don't know, but I'm cutting the rope." And from that exact night, my sleep was deep again. From that day on, the chronic ache in my bones started to fade. That was the day I finally understood that holding on to bitter grudges, dragging around ancient guilt, hoarding apologies that arrived too late, all of that weighs heavier on a man's heart than a 100-pound sack of feed. And the human body simply wasn't built to haul that kind of weight for decades. If you are carrying something dark inside you right now, an old feud, a heartbreak from 20 years ago, a bridge you burned when you had the chance to cross it, let it go. Drop it exactly the way I dropped the guilt over my mother. Don't do it for the other guy. Do it for yourself. Do it for your own blood, for the handful of good years you've still got left on the clock. And the 10th rule, the final one, and the most vital damn thing I'm going to tell you today. Do not be afraid of dying. Because the sheer terror of death will kill you a hell of a lot faster than any disease ever could. Folks living in the big cities walk around marinated in fear all day long, terrified of getting cancer, terrified of a heart attack, terrified of slipping on the ice, terrified of dying alone, terrified the money will run out, terrified of getting old. They're paralyzed by 1,000 different ghosts that might never even show up. And that constant dripping fear is exactly what makes them sick. Fear puts a vice grip on your heart. Fear turns your mouth to dust. Fear ties your stomach into a hard knot. Fear robs you of your sleep. Fear is just a fatal disease dressed up as common sense. When my father was on his deathbed, he was 91 years old. I had driven up from the city because word got down the mountain that his time was short. When I walked into his bedroom, he was lying there in his regular bed, the window pushed wide open so the cold mountain draft could blow across his face. He looked at me with those eyes of his that looked like two deep, dark wells, and he said, "Elias, don't you shed a tear for me. I'm leaving this place a happy man. I've lived exactly what I was meant to live. I did the work I was meant to do. I loved the people I was supposed to love, and now it's just my time to rest." He reached out, grabbed my wrist, squeezed it with every ounce of strength he had left, and he just drifted off. Just like that. No drama, no screaming, no doctors in white coats, no beeping machines. That afternoon, crying beside his mattress while the sun sank hard behind the ridge, I made him a promise. I swore to him that when my ticket got punched, I would go out exactly the way he did, without a drop of fear. I've spent 110 years honoring that promise, and I'm going to hold the line right to the bitter end. Death is not some villain hiding in the dark. Death is just the final depot on a very long train ride. If you rode the train well, you pull into the station totally at peace. If you spent the whole ride miserable, You pull in terrified. But you pull in either way. Nobody escapes that tracks. The only thing you get to choose is how you step off the train. And I choose to step off just like my old man. Sitting upright, staring out at the mountains, no plastic tubes, no screaming, no nothing. Those are the 10 rules. 10. I've handed them to you exactly the way my father handed them to me. No fancy dressing, no medical jargon, no paperwork. Just a voice in the dark. And now I'm going to tell you one last thing that isn't on the list, but it's the bedrock holding the whole damn thing together. If you go through the motions of these 10 rules without actually believing in them, they aren't going to do a thing for you. But if you practice them with reverence, with patience, with the deep understanding that your body is a loaned gift and you are obligated to return it in decent shape, then yes, then they will stretch out your life. But far more importantly than the raw number of years they will stretch out, the quality of those years. And that is the only thing that actually counts. I've crossed paths with men who made it to 90 and didn't truly live a single day of it. They lived terrified, they lived bitter, they lived complaining. They spent their whole lives fixated on what they didn't have instead of looking at what was right in front of them. My neighbor John, the guy who gave up and sat in his recliner, he was exactly like that. He had a solid roof over his head, a good woman, healthy kids, a garden that grew more food than he could ever eat, and he spent every waking hour bitching. Complaining about his stiff back, the rain, the politicians, the fact that his kids didn't visit enough. Everything was always wrong. And one day he sat down in that chair and he never got back up. He died of sheer boredom. I'll say it straight to your face. He died because he couldn't find a single reason to keep pushing. And I do not want that for you. I want you to hit 70, 80, 90 and still wake up hungry for the day. I want you to still drink your hot water at dawn. I want you to still stare up at the sky for 5 minutes before you get to work. I want you to still say thank you just for drawing breath, even if your lower back is barking, even if there's an empty chair at your table, even if the kids don't call as much as you'd like. My grandson, the one who drives up from the city, he's 35 years old. The last time he came up, he sat down on the wooden bench on the porch where I take my son, and he just stayed dead quiet for a long time. I didn't push him. I just waited. And after a good long silence, he looked at me and said, "Grandpa, out there in the city, everybody is sick. They're sick in their bones and they're sick in their heads. They swallow pills to fall asleep. They swallow pills to wake up. They swallow pills just to stop feeling miserable, and they are still completely sick." I look at my friend's grandpa. They're all 35 just like me, and they are all utterly exhausted. Just bone-tired from something they can't even name. And I reached out and grabbed his hand, which is something I hadn't done since he was a little boy. And I told him the exact same thing I'm telling you right now. The oldest medicine on earth isn't sold in a little plastic bottle at the pharmacy. The oldest medicine in the world is found in how you wake up, in how you eat your supper, in how you speak to folks, in how you love, in how you forgive, in how you let go of the past, and in how you lay your head down at night. If you get those things right, you don't need a damn pill. If you get those things wrong, all the pills in the world won't save you. My grandson went quiet again. And right before he drove off that night, he leaned out the truck window and said, "Grandpa, I'm gonna try that hot water thing." And I just smiled in the dark, because that was all I needed to hear. Just start with one. Just pick one. The rest of it falls right into place once your body starts answering back. My name is Elias Vance. I am 110 years old, and my time is coming to a close real soon. But before I step off the porch for good, I'm leaving this with you. I'm leaving you the exact same thing my father left me, almost a century ago on a bitter winter afternoon while I sat on his knee. And I'm asking you for one thing. Just one. When I die, do not think of me and feel sad. Remember these 10 rules. Put them to work. Even if it's just the one rule that made you roll your eyes the hardest when you heard it. The one where you thought to yourself, this old fool has lost his mind. I'm not drinking boiling water. I'm not soaking my feet. I'm sure as hell not keeping my mouth shut. That's the exact rule you need the most. Start right there. Give it 1 week, just 7 days. And you watch how your body, a body that has been silently begging you to pay attention for years, finally starts talking back to you. It will answer you with a deeper, heavier sleep. It will answer you with an easier stomach after a meal. It will answer you with a morning where you open your eyes, stretch your legs, and say, "Damn, I actually feel better today than I did yesterday." Those are the signals. That's the native language of the human body. And once it starts talking to you, do not ever stop listening to it again. I have lived a long, long time. I have watched almost every single person I knew in my wild youth go into the ground. I have buried my own children. I have buried my brothers. I have buried my oldest friends. I buried my wife, who left me 12 years ago on a crisp autumn morning, leaving me all alone to tend to this empty yard. When she crossed over, I was dead certain I'd follow right behind her. That's usually how it goes. 47 years sleeping back to back with the same woman, and suddenly you're staring at an empty pillow. But I didn't follow her. And sometimes sitting out here in the dark, I ask myself why. And the only answer I can ever come up with is that I stuck around specifically for this exact afternoon. Just to sit here and tell you these 10 rules. Despite all the crushing loss that fits into a life as long as mine, let me tell you something. It was worth it. Every single day of it was worth the trouble. Every steaming mug of water in the dark, every bowl of stew at the table, every slow lap around the yard, every quiet talk with my grandson, every single night soaking my tired feet. The whole ride was worth it, and that is exactly what I want for you. I want you to hit your final station, whether you're 70, 90, or 110 like me, and be able to look back and say the exact same thing. It was worth the sweat. Every day, every breath, every single one of those tiny little habits that felt like nonsense at the time, but turned out to be the only things holding the foundation together. Do not wait until you hear the doctor clear his throat to start taking care of yourself. Do not wait until you're standing over a casket to tell someone you love them. Do not wait until the sun is already sinking behind the trees to finally look up and appreciate the sky. Start tonight. Boil the water for your feet. Push your chair back from the table while you're still a little hungry. Turn the lights out before 11. Drink the hot water tomorrow morning, the second your eyes snap open. Drop the heavy grudges you're carrying that can't be fixed anyway. And whatever you do, do not be terrified of dying. Death doesn't negotiate, but life does. Life can be tuned up and improved every single day, right up until the very last breath leaves your lungs. My wife used to tell me that all the time when she was sick in bed. Elias, as long as we get one more sunrise that day, can be just a little bit better than the one before it. On those final days we spent together when she barely had the strength to lift her hand off the quilt, were the most beautiful days of the 47 years we spent together. I learned that from her. You fight for the good right up to the buzzer. It can be done. I'm checking out soon. I can feel it deep in my bones the way you can feel a hard winter coming while the leaves are still turning red. There's a soft, quiet chill creeping in, just giving me a heads up. It's not a pain, it's a polite warning. I'm not leaving here sad. I'm checking out with a smile, because I lived exactly what I was put here to live. And because now, thanks to you sitting here listening to an old man ramble, I know that the wisdom my father gave me 100 years ago isn't going to get buried in the dirt with me. It's going to walk away with you. It's going to live inside your chest exactly the way it lived in mine. And one day, many years from now, when your hair is white and you've got a son or a grandson or an old friend sitting right next to you on the porch, you're going to pass these things along. You're going to look at them and say, "Boil the water, son. Push away from the table while you're still hungry. Don't fight over your supper. Let go of the dead things you can't fix." And when you do, my old man, who is already waiting on the other side, is going to smile. And I'll be smiling right there next to him, wherever the hell we end up. Take care of yourself, son. Take care of your feet. Guard your dinner table. Protect your sleep. Watch your words. Starve your resentment. Kill your rushing. And above all else, guard your mind against fear. Because life is brutally short for the folks who live it terrified, and beautifully long for the ones who treat it with respect. And you still have time. As long as your heart is hammering in your chest, as long as you have the strength to lift your arm, open the kitchen door and put a kettle on the stove. You still have time to begin. Yeah, listening to the voice of Elias Vance feels like sitting on a porch at sunset, catching the quiet wisdom of a century gone by. Before we dive into the deep heartbeat of his message, it is essential to emphasize that this story and the insights shared are created solely for educational purposes. Elias brings us back to the basics of human existence, pointing out that while technologies change, the human body remains exactly the same. His reflections show us that health and peace are not found in complicated formulas, but in our daily respect for the vessel we inhabit. The profound shift we experience when listening to this tale is the realization of how aggressively we treat our own bodies. We wake up and immediately shock our systems with cold liquids, forgetting that our inner fire needs gentle coaxing at dawn. We eat until we are stuffed, mistaking overconsumption for abundance, when true vitality actually thrives on a slight, steady hunger. Elias teaches us that living fully requires a deliberate slowing down. Whether it is breaking a deep sweat once a week, warming our feet before sleep to comfort our deep energy, or simply speaking less to protect our vital spark, these acts are profound expressions of human dignity. The sacredness of our daily rituals. The most beautiful lesson lies in how we handle our heavy emotions. Sitting at the dinner table with anger or grief turns our nourishment into poison, proving that our physical state is entirely bound to our mental peace. Elias invites us to make the dinner table holy ground, leaving our unpaid bills and arguments outside on the porch. He urges us to honor the natural cycles of the night, resting before 11, so our internal organs can flush out the daily poison. True movement should not be a violent war against the self, but a smooth, steady rhythm, much like a deep river flowing without pause. By letting go of ancient guilt and forgiving our past missteps, we unburden our hearts from weights we were never designed to carry. Ultimately, by conquering our fear of death, we learn to live beautifully, ensuring that we step off life's train entirely at peace. Personal reflections on the human journey. When we look at Elias Vance's journey, we see a mirror reflecting our own modern, chaotic lives. We live in an era where speed is glorified, yet we forget that the most profound growth happens in silence and slow motion. Human connection and self-respect are not commodities to be bought at a pharmacy, but rituals to be practiced every single dawn. True wellness begins the moment we decide to stop treating our bodies like machines and start treating them like sacred gardens. Every scar we carry tells a story, but it is up to us whether that story becomes a heavy anchor or a guiding sail. We often consume so much noise from the outside world that we drown out the quiet, intuitive wisdom whispering from within our own bones. True wealth is not measured by the numbers in a bank account, but by the peace we feel when we sit alone in a quiet kitchen. To love someone deeply means also knowing when to let go of the guilt when they are no longer here to hold our hand. Longevity is a beautiful gift, but it only holds value if those extended years are filled with purpose, laughter, and genuine presence. We must cultivate the courage to push back from the tables of greed, anger, and overconsumption before they consume us entirely. Life asks us to be active participants in our own healing, rather than passive observers waiting for a miracle pill to fix our choices. By warming our roots and calming our minds, we build a shelter that no external storm can easily tear down. Let us remember that every sunrise brings a fresh opportunity to rewrite our habits and treat ourselves with ultimate kindness. Kindness toward oneself is the hidden foundation upon which all empathy for the rest of humanity is built. Ultimately, a life well lived is simply a collection of small, respectful choices made consistently with a heart completely free of fear. Disclaimer: the content provided in this narrative, including all health advice, routines, and philosophical reflections, is for educational and informational purposes only, and should not be construed as professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional regarding any medical condition or dietary changes.